Second. Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, what's the meeting tonight? Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Mr.
Laughter.
Here.
Simcha.
Here.
Conklin.
Here.
Moody. Hammer.
Here.
Four present.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to excuse Commissioner Moody, who's not here tonight.
I'll make a motion to excuse Commissioner Moody.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, moving on. We have an opportunity to thank Jim White. So Jim, if you would come, and Brenda. We got you and your folks, come up and. Can we do you well?
Well, hello.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's enough.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for all here to talk about something. Well, Jim, thank you. Your moment here. In the name of the city of Boyne City, this certificate of appreciation is presented to James White. Upon seeing how a tragedy was averted and a life was saved through the quick action of others with the right life-saving equipment, he decided to take action himself by making a gift of 12 new automatic AEDs to Boyne area nonprofits and churches, so that similar immediate life-saving actions could take place here when necessary. This thoughtful, much-needed vision and donation will help save lives by promoting cardiac arrest response and CPR training in the Boyne City EMS service area. Further, because of his actions, Boyne City EMS hereby proclaims James White, Jim White, as its honored citizen for the 2023 4th of July celebration, and has reserved for him a much-deserved front seat ride in its Echo first response car for the parade for putting others ahead of himself. It is therefore with much gratitude and appreciation that the city of Boyne City, on behalf of all those in the Boyne area, presents this certificate of appreciation to James White this 11th day of April 2020.
Okay, so Jim's amazing. This is a huge donation to our service area. For those of you who do not know, your chance of survival in the field outside of a hospital without an AED and without CPR is less than 10%. With the AED and the CPR, it gives you a much better chance of survival. And this was a huge gift for Jim to give to our coverage area. Really appreciate it. We can't wait to see you on the 4th of July.
The fire engine, what is it?
It's our first response car. We're your prime ambulance. It's your choice. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say, Jim?
I can say that. Like you said in this nice proclamation, I didn't even know what AED was when the football player went down. I was watching a game, so I did some research and realized that maybe I just told me, and I called Brenda. She said, if you can do that, that'd be great. Get a certain brand, this striker brand, because that's the type our ambulance use, and they can use the wires, take the wires off of one of the churches American Legion has, and hook it to their machines, a little more elaborate, I think. And so everybody came to Eagle and got their AEDs mounted in their churches and some visible place. Every school is required to have one in Michigan. And there's one this one that I haven't seen yet. But when I read the statistics that every minute you waiting for the ambulance, you lose 10% of your success rate in person. So if one is there, these things are pretty elaborate. They talk to the person doing it. You don't have to be one of these guys. You can be somebody who listens to directions. They talk, the machine talks to you and tells you what to do. You can't shock a person that doesn't need it because the machine won't let you. Okay, so I'm glad I was able to pull it off. My wife was in full support. She found out that I was doing it. And my daughter was. Yeah. July committee, the president of marketing festival. So those people that have to go on this year, I think to her and the people that are volunteers. Appreciate the reward. I'll take this home. Go get a free beer in it. Okay. Thank you.
Moving on. We have the consent agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item or items on the consent agenda be removed and placed as the last item under new business to receive full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. We have item A, approve the March 20, 2023 budget work session minutes as presented. Approve the March 23rd, 2023 budget work session minutes as presented. Approve the March 28, 2023 regular meeting minutes as presented. Approve to proclaim the week of April 16th through April 23rd, 2023 National Volunteer Week in the city of Boyne City. And approve the recommendation from Boyne City Manager Michael Kane to review the materials presented from Lakeside Elite. And if acceptable, approve the resolution for a charitable gaming license. And authorize the city clerk treasurer to execute the necessary supporting materials. Anyone in the audience who would like to remove anything from the consent agenda to new business? Commissioners? Okay. Commissioner for the consent agenda is motion to approve and Commissioner on check for Commissioner Lansker's report. Any discussion, Commissioner? Roll call, Jessica.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Moody. Or Meehan.
Aye.
Bassett.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, we have citizens' comments. These are citizen comments on non-agenda items. If anybody would like to address the commission on a non-agenda item, I'd ask that you go to the podium, state your name, address, and you have 5 minutes to speak. Anyone interested?
Scared fan in line, but right.
Good to go?
We're good to go.
All right, good evening. My name is Ted Van Dam. My wife and I own Van Dam Custom Homes in Boyne Boatyard, 974 East Division Street. I'm joined tonight by Tanner DePriest, who's our GM at BBY, and we're here tonight to share our current effort and desire to create a highway corridor down the Washington location at the Hartbridge. The background here is quite simply that we haul and launch every spring and fall approximately 250 boats, the bigger of which go in and out of the Hartbridge via our travel. We transport them there with large hydraulic trailer and semi-truck from our shops on Division Street. We currently have an issue with the height of the communication and power lines down Division and to an even greater extent down Pleasant Avenue. This forces us to take a route which is almost twice as long as our most direct route. We currently travel all the way down to the end of Division and then take a hard 180-degree turn to get back on the front, which I'm sure you can imagine stresses our equipment in pretty significant ways. We also need to travel with somebody on top of the boat. It's nearly 20 feet in the air. And we need to slow down or stop approximately 8 utility line crossings and lift those lines over top of the boats. We've also had to turn away work because the boats were too tall. The whole process is for sure nerve-wracking, experiencing clogs traffic, and adds time and stress on our equipment and our people in an already very stressful time of year. Our current effort is focused on a high-wire corridor along the most direct route from our shops, moving down Division and then heading north down Pleasant and crossing front directly into the harbor, rather than going down the length of Division. This is the first step in a series of infrastructure improvements that will include expanding our team, adding buildings, and adding equipment that allows us to pursue our goals. Our teams are a pretty incredible bunch, and we're fueled by solving challenging and complicated problems and creating unique things. Oftentimes at BBY, that desire means bigger boats, both recreational and commercial. Bigger boats, especially commercial, have more complicated systems or challenging problems that require more highly trained people. This is what fuels us. Commercial stuff, by the nature of what it is, overloads our equipment pretty quickly and becomes bigger than what we can transport. Creating this corridor will keep us from needing to stop along the route, which will greatly improve traffic flow and most importantly, it will make the whole process safer. Additional benefits to the community are that we will be getting a mess of wires out of the air and placed underground, which will beautify the corridor and provide a durable infrastructure during storms. This corridor could be used by other local companies to transport tall loads to the water as well. Companies like Boyne could then transport lifts with canopies already installed rather than having to do that work out of the water. Lastly, this is also the first step of a process that will add good, high-paying jobs, technical jobs to our community, and by allowing us to focus on bigger and more technical projects, it will help continue our tradition of being focused on training and education and being involved with our local students. We will pull more work into our local community. In terms of costs, there are no costs I anticipate the city needing to bear. This is a project that we intend on funding from our own savings or the help from state and federal grant funding opportunities. The cost of the city will simply be the time it takes to answer all of my questions. Our goals with regards to timing are to get the communication lines underground by late summer so that during all of the fall, we'll not have to have a wire on top of the boats. Depending on funding, the next step of the process, which is the power lines and any road improvements that need to happen, would hopefully happen in the summer of 2025. Our request for the commission, as I discussed with each of you individually and put it in my letter, is really threefold. The first thing we are requesting is simply your support as we try to navigate public-private project and work on partnering with our public utilities. All of you have been very gracious with your time and advice, and that support I'm very appreciative. The second thing that we are requesting is support and partnership in developing an ordinance to protect this corridor. We already did much of this work in the early 90s when we first moved to Boyne City, and it was undone because we failed to protect it with an ordinance at the time. Lastly, we are asking for your support in acting as a fiduciary for future grant funding that may require a public entity to apply for. The next step of this process will be very costly, and the support could be crucial to actually getting this project accomplished. So thank you very much for your time tonight. Please feel free to reach out to myself or Tanner if you have any questions or concerns. Since public comment is only 5 minutes, I've not directly addressed any questions or concerns you have brought up in our individual meetings. Please know that all of them are being addressed, and we appreciate your insights and your time that you spent consulting. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christopher Feldman. Most people know me by Kit, and I'm your new county prosecutor. Came here, I came here just to introduce myself. I'm new to the area. I was born and raised in Traverse City, and was the prosecutor down there for 10 years, assistant prosecutor. And then Judge Hayes had the opening to fill the former prosecutor, and retired, and he had, as fate would have it, he had just been in Traverse City to do a trial. Our judges had recused themselves about him, and I prosecuted that case, and he encouraged me to apply for these jobs. I'm incredibly honored, but because I don't know very many people here, I've been going around to introduce myself. But many people really like talking much about themselves, but that is the point of introducing yourself. So as far as who I am, I'm a Christ follower, I'm a follower. I was raised with good family values, and I reflect those in how I try to do my job, how I vote. So I'm a conservative. I'll be running as a Republican next year. But in the meantime, in Grand Traverse, I was an assistant for just over 10 years. And I started off doing drunk driving cases, and then after a few years, started moving and doing sexual assault cases. And that's really where my heart and passion is. That's what keeps me going in this job, is putting danger people away and doing my best, doing what we can in the prosecutor's office, doing as public safety, to aggressive prosecution in public safety crimes like drunk driving. I was going to say that I would stick around until you're done to answer any questions, but I see closed session, so might not be as interesting for you to stick around. If that ends up lasting very long, I'll probably be out of here by the time you're done. But if any member of the public wants to talk about the prosecutor's office, prosecution, or anything like that, I would be happy to introduce myself and get to
Just for clarification, a closed session scheduled that we postponed another meeting. So that won't be occurring. We do have to the agenda. I'm not sure how long we last, but those that have been posted.
I'll be around.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd like to give an update to the progress of the splash pad. Last time we were here, we got permission from the president of the Boyne County Community Center, which had the funds after starting the building in Genesis Church to do something for the community. We decided to build a splash pad. And suggested that we did the work. It would be simplest, and then we're done, we'll go into the city will take over. And I think it was the beginning of summer when we coached the commission, and they voted 5-0 to allow us to do it. And we decided to use volunteers for almost everything except the excavator, which didn't dig. But we had volunteers from the city that did a good job. Everything is done below ground. The cement has been poured. The weather gets like this type of weather, we've got to put a nice round sealer on it. It'll give it a little different look than just regular cement. And then install the above ground features, they call them, tree and water comes out of the ground, also comes from overhead. And it's gonna be, the company that we bought it from has 8 different plans. They said, oh, I'm clever, well, you're clever to do it. We didn't do that. We picked out people who what we're doing. And we had some good volunteers, Frank Shaler and Mike Scope, the 2 of the hardest working guys. And so once we get the sealer down, the water, everything underground is pumped properly, city water. And the people ask me if the drain, the water drains into the city sewer system. But we'll get the third one in the country that made this complex. The other 8 are much simpler. Just water coming underground. So look forward to it. We'll probably, I'm thinking if weather cooperates, maybe sometime we'll open it up. City Russell's granddaughter, 5 years old. She heard about it a year ago. She come back to Boyne City. She's I just came and left, but she wanted to go splash pad. All right, so it's gonna excite the kids, I think. Maybe adults too. Thanks.
Anyone else? Mike, is there anyone? I see no hand raised. Moving on, then we have correspondence in a package. There's an email from Jeff out here. Ben and Dan's letter to the city is in our packet, and any party answers to questions and brought to the city commission on March 14th are in the packet. And normally, I wouldn't do this, but we had a little snafu getting, we always try to get answers to questions within, by the next meeting, and because of, we're doing this, and we weren't quite sure we were even gonna have a meeting until the day before. I'm gonna take the time to read any questions that she had asked me to do, and, with the answers that they had provided. Is that what you're looking for? Yeah. So, question one, can the altered marina expansion plan go back to a phase plan? The expansion plan at this point is a concept and no decisions have been made on how to build it out. The short-term direction of the commission is to replace Dock D to fit into the layout of the approved concept. So as build-out phases are determined, no alterations to Dock D will be necessary. Question two, will additional phases be contingent on a 5 to 10 year plan once phase one is complete to show if those costs are being recouped through the marina fees before more dock construction? Answer, it's possible. No decisions have been made. Whether or not marina fees will be able to fund expansion at this point seems unlikely. Question three, has the city set aside money for repair of the T-dock, the damage was done to the rails? Have you gotten an estimate from location dock? And the storm we had during the holiday season, where it looked like there was some damage done to the dock, or to the T-dock. The city has been in touch on this with location dock since the storm took place in December. It appears to have mainly bounced back, much as they predicted. They have not come down to inspect it yet, but we have sent them pictures of the damage we can see. They have not priced any repairs yet, and no resources have been set aside specifically for possible repairs to the T-dock. But the Marina Reserve Fund has a balance of $314,299, some of which should be used if necessary for repairs. Question four. Will the floating L-shaped attenuator be safe from that type of ice damage? Answer. The best engineering will be used designing and constructing the attenuator. However, nothing is guaranteed, and it's possible a severe act of nature could result in damage to the attenuator. Question five. Putting in the full revised marina expansion will be very costly. Does the DNR, Eagle, or other granting entities require any minimum addition to current marina receive those funds? In regards to a minimum addition requirement, the city does not know, but the city will pursue every grant opportunity available for the marina expansion renovation. Question six, can you show a plan to finance such a big expansion that will not require a general bond while using only the marina income to pay for a much larger marina, including maintenance and replacement? Answer, no. A finance plan has not been developed, but before moving forward with any expansion, a finance plan must be in place. And as stated earlier, it is highly unlikely marina fees will be able to fund marina expansion. Those were the questions and the answers provided by the city. So, any other correspondence, Jessica, is coming?
Yeah, just point of clarification, these responses that were given, how did these responses become, who drafted the responses?
Well, I drafted some and I sent it to the city manager with the expectation that it would be, there would be commissioner input.
Okay. They were distributed to all the commissioners. Right.
We moved to the city manager's report, right?
Certainly. Just a couple items for the safety. On Monday, our contractor started working on the Pine Street sanitary sewer replacement project. And they're well underway with that as we speak. With the return of the warmer weather, this coming Monday, April 17th, the city will begin its spring curbside pickup of leaves in craft paper bags. And we use those because they work in our composting area. If people need more information, we ask them to contact City Hall. The Top of Michigan Mountain Bike Association contractor is planning to resume work on the downhill jump line trail. That is part of the Boyne Forest Trail System. That's located north of the city, off Old Bay Road in Evangeline Township. And they hope to start that work next week, weather permitting. At our next city commission meeting at noon on April 25th, we will be accepting comments on our $12.8 million sanitary sewer system and wastewater treatment plant improvement project, which we have requested funding under this Clean Water State Revolving Fund. A copy of that plan, which looks like this in paper form, is available here at the city offices for review and is also on the city's website under the construction and projects tab on the left side of the homepage. If anybody has any questions on this matter before that meeting on the 25th, I'd be glad to try and address them. Reminder that petitions for the upcoming November city commission election are due here at City Hall on Tuesday, April 25th. If anybody has any questions on that, they should contact our city clerk treasurer, Jessica Burrow. And if there's any other questions on these or other items, I'd be glad to try and address them.
Commissioners, any questions or no questions?
I just had in regards to the rolling update list.
Yes.
When we left the budgeting session, we kind of asked for a consensus in regards to the ARPA funds and seeing if we would have the ability to do the structure that we were talking about.
Correct. Jessica and I have been looking into that since that meeting. We requested information from the county and see how they did it, and also got some information from the Michigan Municipal League. They're basically talking about processes and how to work that through.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner? Moving on to old business, we have 9A, additional full-time paramedic hires. Consider the recommendation from EMS Director Brendan Wilson to authorize the EMS department to hire 2 additional full-time paramedics as presented. Brendan?
Good evening. So I have been here twice, once.
On this topic.
Yes. All right, so we have hired 2 full-time staffers, and my request is to hire 2 more full-time staffers. As provided in the packet, I show how they'll be utilized and how it will overall save us money. We run 2 full-time ALS agencies, one here and one in our station 2 over on Railroad Street in Boyne Falls. 24/7, 365 days a week or a year. We are required to have a paramedic and an EMT in both of those stations. Coming by volunteers, as everybody probably already learns in other facets of their life, is not easy, and doing this job as a paid-on-call volunteer is becoming a thing of the past. I have a great, wonderful blended staff, but I do have more that are, want full-time jobs. There's a lot of agencies in the area that are hiring, and we have to be able to compete with them to keep the amazing staff that we have. So that is why when I wrote my budget, I budgeted to hire 2 more full-time staff people. And so that is what.
Well, could you just give a little background, Brendan, about the people that were recently hired? This is big 4.
Yes, so the 2 that were recently hired are actually in this room. They both have 20+ years of experience in EMS. The nice part about having them full-time is that we utilize them for multiple other things. They have filled holes because they are full-time staff. They try to help out more if they're full-time, so they're paid hourly instead of paid per shift per call. It gave them benefits. The one actually left his other full-time job to work here full-time. So that was a benefit for us. Dan actually spoke at the last meeting and is a retired nurse from McLaren Hospital who has been with the city of Boyne for how long, Dan?
Shortly after Mr. Malott came.
Almost 20 years. And it's been working out very well. They help with the truck maintenance, they help with cleaning, they have responsibilities. Dan's trying to start a full-time education program for our department here in the building, which is quite an adventure. So it's been working out very well.
Commissioners, any quick questions here for Brendan before we go to this comments?
Just to mention that this has been fully vetted with regards to the budget, that the commission will be considering later on today. We had a lot of lengthy discussions with Brenda to review, and to make sure that we believe that this would actually be cash flow for us. And everything that she's been able to demonstrate so far, with regards to how this would work, other cost savings initiatives that they've undertaken, better bill collection processes, things of that nature. I think helped convince me to, again, continue to recommend this to the commission going forward. And just knowing from the time that Brenda puts in, I can understand why she said 365 days a week.
Ready to get anybody in line, Brenda, or lined up?
So when I interviewed for the two positions that were open, the way Kevin Spade put it to me, because he did the interviews with me, he would have killed to have 4 people to qualify for 2 jobs and not have to say. So yeah, I had 4 wonderful candidates. 2 are within our ranks. 1 has joined us recently and another is with another agency. That agency is very aware that that person wants to work here. So yeah, I had 4 wonderful candidates for these jobs.
Still,
Okay, thank you, Richard. You don't mind staying there if there's any questions from the audience? Any comments or questions from the audience? Okay. We can go to, meeting over, George, you want to start?
Got it. I certainly understand the need and yeah, I remember we talked about this in our budget meetings and I think that's what I don't see it now, but I think Brenda's done a great job as part of building and trying to make ends meet financially, been very responsible that way. And I just appreciate that, Brenda. Well, I'm support.
Yeah, I'm in full support. I think the process, Brenda has proven that this administratively, having 4 people to help her saves, it serves towards longevity and continuity in the program. And it also saves money financially and it hopefully our people will not be burned out from working $100 a week. We can share that responsibility. It's a win-win situation, so I'm in full support.
Yeah, I'm in full support, to the budget process. It was very clear that, Brenda's the right person for the job. The leadership she's brought to the table this last year. Financially, it makes sense. The numbers are there. Most importantly, as a service to our community, that's going to be a better service having full-time staff members. So I'm in full support.
Great. Yes, I am too. But I just want to, for my own peace of mind, understand how we pay for this. So through fees and contracts and that sort of thing, you're projecting to earn $1,205,000. We get a contribution from the townships that we serve of $175,000. And then basically, city contributions as a cash money is the transfer to the general fund, which is $175,000. So basically, we can say that we're providing a service to city taxpayer money for $175,000. Great. Mike?
I think it goes to a point that I've made for years, as we've talked to the commission and the community, and comparing our service to some of the other services around. And the millages that they levy and the costs that they charge to their residents to provide quality services as well too. But how efficiently we've been able to provide it over these years and continuing to go forward even with this upgraded staffing is, I think it's amazing. People compare what we're paying in Boyne City to what some of the surrounding jurisdictions are paying. We're providing great value for our own tax dollars, for all the tax payers in the jurisdictions that we provide, the neighboring townships that we provide service to, whether it's Evangeline Township Boyne Valley Township or
Valley Township, Evangeline Township, Eveline Township, Wilson Township, Bay Township, Chandler Township, Hudson Township, Melrose Township.
they're all benefiting by the efficiency that our department puts on. So it's kudos to the staff and to the long-term leadership that we've had in this department all these years.
The reason we have been successful as long as we have, all of you that are here, your form would stand out. Are you volunteers? Everybody that you see has another job, unless they're full-time for me and left their full-time job for us. And then one of the other things that came up in our budget hearings, there's two people in this audience. We applied through the Michigan Rural EMS Association. And two of the individuals in this room received full ride scholarships totaling $72,000 to go to paramedic school to better support our community, as we are short on paramedics in this country. And so they have both been given full ride scholarships. So we are very excited. Yeah. You can stand it. Earlier Jesse Williams was here. Jesse's been an EMT with the city for more than 10 years. Amanda Maters is an EMT that lives here in Boyne. Tracy Smith is an EMT that lives here in Boyne City. They are the ones that are going to paramedic school. Kevin Lapham is a paramedic with our company. He's been with the city for a long time. Bill Drake is a paramedic with our city, and you've been here. And this is all. Dan Weinrey is one of our full-time paramedics and has been with the city, as he said, as long as John Mott was here. Nathan Moyer is a local resident who is an EMT, currently in paramedic school. Mike Wheeler is one of our full-time staffers and has been in EMS longer than I've been alive. And is also one of our full-time staff members.
Thanks for that.
And there are 22 more of them that are not here tonight. So our community is served by a lot of volunteers that all have other full-time jobs and responsibilities and obligations, and they still come in and serve every time that they possibly can.
Right, great, thank you very much. So.
And I think, to just hit on an important point. There've been a lot of issues in there's an overall staffing shortage in EMS services across the country. And we've been very fortunate through the years, not that we haven't had our struggles, but compared to a lot of the other agencies out there, the longevity and the devotion that we've had, camaraderie with our service providers has just been outstanding in regards to it. And again, as Brenda mentioned, it is the people. We've been very fortunate to have good people, and it makes a good program for everybody. So.
Well, the mission.
I'll make a motion that the city commission authorize the EMS department to hire 2 additional full-time paramedics as outlined above.
Second. Motion and second, any other discussion? Jessica, roll call please.
Conklin.
Aye.
Meehammer.
Aye.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Well, thank you, Brenda, and thanks to everyone for all of you. Okay, moving on, we have item 9B, transfer of city property, it's 635 East Main Street.
Yeah, at our March 25th city commission meeting, I reported that we were prepared to transfer 2 adjacent properties we own at 635 East Main Street to the Charlevoix County Land Bank for use in the construction of 2 new homes. The transfer of this property to the land bank was previously unanimously approved by all members of the city commission that were present at our July 12, 2022 meeting. The city commission requested at our last meeting additional information be provided regarding this matter, most specifically regarding the timing of the project. Included in the commission's agenda packet is correspondence from Jane McKenzie, who is the executive director of the Northern Homes, providing current information regarding their overall plans to construct 5 new homes on East Michigan Street in Boyne City, including 2 on the lots that are currently owned by the city. The timeline for that project is provided. They anticipate that they would have demolition of the existing homes or buildings on these sites and construction, beginning this July. Also included for the commission's review is the deed and transfer affidavit, that were prepared for this, transfer, by the city attorney. It's my recommendation that the city commission review the materials that were presented, and if acceptable, authorize myself and the city clerk treasurer to execute the necessary documents to complete this transfer of the city properties at 635 East Main Street to the Charlevoix County Land Bank as previously approved by the city commission. And I'm glad to try and address any questions, and I'll see if I can bring up the map that shows this a little bit more clearly. Yeah, so the two lots outlined in blue, there is an old home at 635, that's the address there, that has not been occupied for quite some time and has very serious water issues and rotting of wood and immediately to the east of that, heading towards the airport, and this is on the north side of Main Street, East Main Street, is a wooded lot that would be sold with it as well. And on those two lots would be two new homes that would go up.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Any questions or comment from the public?
I'm just wondering, they're Penny Harding, 437 North, they're part of the trying to come up with affordable, available housing.
Yes.
Okay. I thought so, I just want to be sure.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll go to Commissioner deliberation comment.
So yes, I'm in favor of this. Just a clarification, Mike, we did this once, we approved it once.
Correct.
So it's before us again to,
Basically, because at the last city commission meeting, the commission asked for additional information before I execute the documents. So we provided that information. I want to make sure it's sufficient to meet the commission's needs and that they want to give us the green light to proceed, or if there's something else that's needed, let us know.
and that's the way I interpret it too, but do we, if we already had a motion on record, we need to do it again?
Yes, because this is actually going through the land transfer, that there was no motion that had passed by the commission for the land transfer. The last meeting that got held up due to us wanting to establish the timeline, essentially, correct?
I have to go back and hang on a sec here. I think we included the minutes from the last meeting that, or the earlier meeting in July. We'll check.
Well, if there's been much discussion with working with the land bank, working with brownfield funds, working with the county, working with, the city of Charlevoix and East Jordan, and, we're all on record that this is a quick process, and that, Boyne City has potentially these 5 lots that would go into the land bank, they would be built upon to provide housing, and the following year, East Jordan or Charlevoix would be the recipient, and pretty soon we get into a revolving process where the cities work together with the land bank, with all types of government agencies to make this a reality of trying to get some affordable housing and all in Charlevoix County. So I'm in full support.
Yeah, I'm in full support. As it's already been said, this was an agenda topic July 12th, 2022. We went through the materials then, the board unanimously voted it through, supported it then. March 25th meeting, essentially, there was questions in regards to timeline. That material is provided right here, showing the structure of that timeline, so I'm in full support.
Yeah, just a couple things. So it looks like demolition, if there's abatement needed, it should be done by July 15th roughly. If there's no abatement by June 30th, I mean, they plan on breaking ground. So said
Almost simultaneously, the information that I think is in your packet basically said, the demolition people would also then turn around and start forming the footings for the new buildings.
and there'd be the same design as the house on the
They
back.
gave some conceptual designs, those aren't final designs yet at this point, so, but I asked Dean to provide us some feeling of what we should expect to see down there.
Any idea cost with the home cost?
I don't have that information.
All right, yeah, I fully support it, so I entertain a motion to approve the recommendation.
I'll make a motion that the city commission authorize the city manager and city clerk treasurer to execute the necessary documents to complete the transfer of the city properties at 635 East Main Street to the Charlotte County Land Bank as previously approved by the city commission.
Is there a second? Second. Second, Tom, any further discussion? Roll call, Jessica?
Medium,
Aye.
Baxter,
Aye.
Jenny Check,
Aye.
Conklin,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 9C, Heritage Center temporary exhibit funding request. Consider the recommendation of the city manager Michael Kane to approve the recommendation of the historical commission to provide an amount not to exceed $10,000 to develop and furnishings their proposed temporary exhibit in a community space under the condition that any materials purchased or not be used for future museum related purposes be sold, recovered from the cost.
Good evening, I'm Gal Litzenberger and Keisha Freed, and as you said, we're with the Boyne Heritage Center. We've been tasked with finding and what we're now calling an interim display rather than a temporary display, because it's not definite, how long this will be used, but it could be a length of time. So we want to stress that there's some durability involved in the proposal. That wouldn't necessarily just be for the summer season. And we took to heart really what George said about potentially selling this, which, I'm sorry, I didn't think of it because it had been involved in some charity auctions in the past as a volunteer. And it amazed me what some of these items brought. I mean, far more than they were worth. People would just bid on for the cause, So I really think that has a lot. Well, we both think that has a lot. And so I think that that's something that we would expect to do when the time comes, to dispose of these items. As far as anything new, since we were here before, we've been in meetings, had several meetings with our museum designer that we spoke of, Joe Hines, and kind of bantered back and forth about what's the best thing to do, and as far as the economics, and so he assured us that our plan, really the original suggestion that we had was really going to be the best. With the difficulty in fabricating something more permanent, would be permanent. The timeline, and really is our timeline, far beyond what we are hoping, which we had said we would love to have it for our May event, recognizing, with all the supply chain difficulties, we're still hoping that can happen, with you all.
Right, well, after with Marty's concern about spending money on something temporary, well, like Gal said, we're kind of thinking this, we really should have called it something a little more transitional or interim, because it could be up for a couple of years, and this is really gonna be a pretty hard-working piece. It's gonna be a marketing piece, and really something really visual and powerful that tells a story, not only tells a story and entertains, but educates about the whole project, and asked for supporters in both volunteers and financial support. We did, as Gal said, we did sit with Joe Hines, our museum designer, and said, well, is there a way that we could build part of our permanent display, just part of it, so that piece would be permanent, and it could be done, but it would take a little bit longer since his drawings are conceptual drawings. It would take him a little bit longer to work on the more of an engineering drawing that he could then hand over to a fabricator. He is going ahead with that. That's not gonna be any kind of a waste of time because he'll have to do that eventually anyway. So he is going forward on that and he will get costs for that, but we don't know realistically. I don't even know if that would get us up, if fabricating that would get us up for the summer months. And I know that was something that was really important to the historical commission and also the city commission, was that the community needs to see something that's happening. And we think with this display, it'll be fast, it'll be easy to put up by ourselves. It's gonna be a huge bang for buck. I mean, these round panels, they're almost gonna be the size of this backdrop. So it's gonna be boom in your face. You're gonna walk in and really it's gonna have some power to it. And it'll allow it to be up during city hall hours so that people can go in and watch. There could be some people manning it part-time, but we're hoping to build it so that the displays that we set up are gonna be big enough so there will be risk of people walking out with a flower or something, it'll be substantial. So we think that our original plan, we'd like you to consider that, and thank you for considering that.
Chad, just say, so how do you see the next 6 months? What's gonna be happening? You have an event May 25th, so the temporary design will be done by then, or exhibited.
That's the plan, is that we can get this up in time for that women's event in the end of May, and then we're planning a men's fundraiser in the fall. And then we want to be open during the summer also, and then continue working. Part of this display, we have a photo booth section, so we want to continue doing the inventory and cataloging. And that can actually be part of this display, so people can actually, it's not, they can see the meat and potatoes of what's actually happening. And then just doing more fundraising. We're talking about ways that we can really ramp up our fund development. So we're talking, we've got a couple of people that are new fund development that we're trying to connect with and see if we can really get this pumped up.
Yeah. Who's doing the designs again?
Well, Joe Hines is doing our overall design, the graphics designs, I'll be doing those. And Patrick McCleary, our historian, he's doing all of the, the super high res scanning. And Patrick and I will be doing together the writing for it, so.
So you guys doing those designs in-house, is that saving a cost, or a portion of that $10,000 going directly to you, the design?
Oh, no, that's all. None of the design was.
That's one thing too, we talked about the installation of this, and that would be with our group. Those are volunteers also that would be doing the installation.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of the $10,000 too also goes for more shelving that we use to display the artifacts, and then those will be used in the permanent storage. And
do you have in mind a vendor as far as who you will be going to as far as printing those actual panels?
The estimates that I got were online printing that I've worked with before just in my business. We also have Deca Digital up in Harbor Springs. I've talked to them. I don't have a price from them yet, but locally in Boyne City, I don't think there's anybody that can do something that large. The trade show.
All the questions I have, thank you.
Yeah, real quick, as far as the 8 images out there, correct, on each side of those panels?
There will be more than that. There's 8 sides to print on, but it's going to be full of, there will be some large images, some smaller ones. There will be, writing messaging on there too.
Okay, how do you figure out what you want to have on those panels? Is it like nautical or lumbering or railroad?
Well, basically what we'll do, I don't know if you remember our PowerPoint presentation, but basically this will be sort of a PowerPoint, just walking through it. So we'll We'll talk about the organization itself, the nonprofit, sort of the history of it, how the city has helped us to do this. We'll talk about the process of preserving the collection and the artifacts. We'll go over the sections of what the permanent display is going to be. So, you know, I think there are seven sections in that permanent. So we'll go over that. We'll have requests for financial support, and then we'll utilize the things that we already have, like our big 72-inch TV. We'll have slideshow, you know, things going ongoing. And then also we'll have, you know, the work on the France reviews ongoing too. So we're planning on probably doing some smaller pop-ups that'll help drive people into the France room when it's time for that.
All right. Move to the public, any comments or questions?
Overall, how close are you to raising enough money to have a permanent museum set up, and any sort of timeline you've figured out?
Well, we're really not at all close to the final amount, and that's really the point of this, you know, we wanna encourage people to come in. You know, we had a very temporary display last summer, I think it was in June, when you did the printing. We did it right here at City Hall. I say we did others. And people really, we had artifacts that were on loan from a group in Charlotte with some logging artifacts. And we found that people really just wanted a reason to get in that space. You know, they paid for it and they want to see the room and they want to see what the potential is. So as far as, you know, seeing the complete thing, we're far from that. And so we're hoping that this will satisfy the public until the time we do that.
Satisfy and encourage and, you know, get people excited and engaged and enthused about it.
Anyone else? Dave?
Hi, I'm Sandy Pritchard, 526 East Lincoln Street. I'm a little perplexed. We built this beautiful building and we allocated space for the historical museum. It was quite some while ago. And I will confess, I hadn't stayed close to your fundraising or what have you, but a lot of people in town donated a bunch of stuff and they are very anxious to see it out. And I think there's a lot of, you know, that's another draw for visitors, for people that are deeply, maybe, you know, just in general, like history. And I feel like I don't understand. I thought there was 200,000 or something we allocated way back in the beginning for this. And that I thought, I could be totally wrong, but I've heard that there was 200,000 allocated to make this meeting happen. And we're sitting here now, so maybe it's a matter of an update of where we're really at, because this should be done. You know, this should be in play.
Well, Sandy, I'll tell you, we're certainly open to suggestions. We would welcome you to come to our meeting. You know, this really isn't the forum to talk about all the details, but we would love to have, I mean, we're welcoming with open arms anybody who has an interest in history. We'd love to have you attend a meeting and we'll fill you in more detail there. But
no, I guess my point is that I wonder that you're getting the support that you need.
oh, we're
And
definitely
if
here.
we're talking about $10,000 here, I think it's a number.
Well, you guys can answer that.
Could you answer
Yeah.
question about the debt fund and?
Sure. Yeah, because I've heard similar comments before. The city, in building this building, basically decided to go forward with this concept rather than just recreating the museum we had in the old building, was to stop the construction in the museum area and then let the Heritage Center group come up with a revised concept for it. That's why they hired Joe to do that. Doing that saved the city about maybe $40,000 or $50,000 by stopping that construction in that area. And we've more than invested that money with the hiring of Joe and other services that the city has provided. So we've spent more money than was originally budgeted for the museum in the museum space by quite a bit. The money that we have reserved or that has been in the accounts for the construction of this building was cost savings from the overall construction. We came in under budget for this building by about $100,000. And we've been deciding where we need to invest that. This budget that's called for takes an additional $100,000 and proposes to invest that in the museum space. Still leaving us some of the other savings. So that $200,000 was never originally budgeted for the
Just for the museum. Right, and like you said, the city paid for the original or the first phase of the museum design, the conceptual design. So, and that was, I think, about $50,000 for that. So the city has invested.
Anyone else? Okay. If you want to start off, or Commissioner?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation again. I know it's a little bit of a repeat from the meeting on the 25th. And thanks for being attentive to the feedback that was given then. I'm in full support of it. I know the community, I can ask questions regularly in regards to this topic on when is there going to be something down there, when will there be something tangible that people can see, tour. And so this is getting us closer to that. Going through the budget process, it's very clear that we have funds available in a certain account left over for furnishing. And as Mike said during that budgeting session, the consensus of this commission was getting you guys the support you guys need, so then we can get moving quicker in a direction of trying to get tangible things in there for the community. So I'm in full support. The $10,000 for my, it is just clarifications coming out of that account that we discussed.
no, this is actually there were two areas that were proposed for this. This is coming out of the money that would normally have gone to the historical commission. So we had $5,000 that was budgeted for this current fiscal year, and there's some additional monies for next year. So
Right. Yeah, but yeah, it's a no-brainer, so I'm in full support.
I'm just saying that something's finally getting done. I think it's great. It's near and dear to my heart, sure. So thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah.
As it takes off. Well said, George. I'm in agreement.
You know, I think we do. You know, someday we have to know how many volunteer hours are going into this and how many people are involved, whatever it takes to get where we've got, because you're all doing it on your own time and well volunteer work, and it's first class and professional and it's great. So I just hope we can keep going until we get the finish line.
Thank you. That means a lot. That's huge.
I entertain a motion on
Just a point of clarification on this recommendation that's here. Do we need to go into the condition of materials purchase would be sold, so on and so forth? Is that what you guys are looking for? Is that?
Well, that would be a way, as George suggested, to recoup once the interim display is no longer needed, that we would recoup some of these funds. That would be our goal. That they could be sold and returned to the city.
So you're just talking about those four banners, essentially, are all of the material from this.
Anything that we could recover, we'd be all for it, yeah.
And I'm also hoping that I can design some of these panels so that they can be used longer into the future, you know, at the expos or, you know, visiting out to Raven Hill or things like that for future exhibits too. Not all of them would be able to be reused, but I'm hoping to be able to do some of those that they can be redone.
Right, so my only point bringing it up is if this recommendation or if this motion is structured with that, you wouldn't be able to utilize those for future usage. If I'm correct in that assumption.
No, the way I worded the motion would be, any materials purchased that would not be used for future museum-related purposes. So they'd have to basically go through and find things that were basically just gonna put in a closet or didn't have any future function. They would basically have a role in determining that, but it would still have to go with the city commission's intent, as was kind of discussed at our last meeting, that if there's surplus stuff and we can recoup it, and that's, rather than just going into storage, sell it.
So that Harris Center would make that decision, not the historical district commission.
Correct.
All right.
So basically, you're asking for $10,000 for the temporary visit, correct? And then once you're moving along and if you can sell the banners or whatever for fundraising, you're gonna do that. If you can find another use for them in the museum, you're gonna use them for that.
Correct.
So basically, you're asking for $10,000, and we have confidence that you're gonna use that money wisely, as you described.
Correct.
I'll make a motion that the city commission approve the recommendation of the historical commission to provide the historical commission an amount not to exceed $10,000 to develop and furnish the proposed temporary exhibit in the museum space under the condition that that any materials purchased would not be used for future museum related purposes, be sold to recover some of the costs.
Is there a second? Or, and a second? Okay.
Can I ask you a clarification? And I didn't catch this earlier, I'm sorry. In the motion that Tim just read, the second historical commission should say heritage center. Yes, that's incorrect.
Because this is,
There was an original, the recommendation came from the historical center commission. The historical commission recommending that the heritage center be authorized to spend this money.
Okay, and the second, Commissioner Lister.
Another comment, what we want after discussion, we want to take out the word temporary.
no, I believe that's, they want, or
They were calling it something different than
interim, yeah. I'll amend my motion to say interim.
Any here? Yes. Any other discussion? Jessica, roll call, please.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Conklin.
Aye.
Meehammer.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On old business 9B, open space permitting today. Third recommendation from the Boyne City Parks and Recreation Commission to approve the changes proposed by Beckett and Rader for the open space landscape plan and authorizing them to submit the necessary documents. Mike?
Yeah, at their meeting last Thursday, Tim Knudsen was here from Beckett and Rader. He's our consultant that's helping guide us with regards to the design, helping us solicit the grants, and then preparing the bid work for the first phase of the open space project. Their current status right now is they are submitting the plans for review to Eagle for their review and consideration. And one of the areas that they had some questions with regard to is a wetland. Let me bring up the map that shows that. Yeah, just shrink that. Yeah. Up in the top left corner where that green area is, there's an existing wetland. That's close to the border with the Honeywell property, and right at the top there is Lake Charlevoix itself. So this is a little bit to the south of the future beach area. When Eagle looked at this, they basically said, okay, you can't fill that wetland, you have to preserve it, you can clean it. And after discussions with Tim at Beckett and Rader, they basically said if you did some landscaping with regards to it, which is shown in this plan, with additional wetland plantings and shrubberies and things of that nature, that protect and help filter the water that comes down the site towards the lake as it works its way into and then through that wetland. That they could basically be able to get their plans approved without having to have any additional permitting required. Beck and Rader is basically thinking that the additional plantings and things would cost about $4,000 additional. And this was reviewed and the concept was approved by the Park and Recreation Commission at the meeting last week. Since the city commission has reviewed and there's a final authorizer for this, we want to bring it to them. Until we can get the permits or basically the approvals, even if permits aren't needed, the blessing from Eagle, we cannot go up for bids. Since again, we're using state funds as part of the $300,000 grant and got those improvements to do this. So one state agency basically has to give the okay to use these funds. So that gets us back to the timeline that was included. I'm going to expand that. And here's the timeline that Mr. Knudsen came up with. Basically, they're looking for approval from us today, so we can submit this to Eagle and basically say, yes, we're agreeable with their suggestions. That they could complete the bid reviews by April 28th. And get the documents issued by May 9th and with them due on the 30th. Now, the original idea was to have spring construction. The time frame of this, there will not be able to have spring construction. They're now looking at fall construction. So we did not want to have construction over the busy summer months where people and groups were going to want to be using the park. Basically didn't want to have a mess during that. So the timeline has shifted basically because of the Eagle review and the discussions on this. And to keep it going, at some point, we'll need the approval of either this or an alternate version from the city commission. So this is the recommendation from Beckman and Rader, approved or recommended by our Parks and Recreation Commission. That's now for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment or questions?
You know, are they going to be using all Michigan native wetland type plants?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, they coordinate both with Eagle and the tip of the mid watershed. Sorry, I should go to the chair.
Anyone else? Okay. Corporation, George. You're good. All right, Tom?
Yeah, sort of the timeline has changed, but this is a necessary step to satisfy Eagle, so we gotta do it. Most support.
Is Tim available?
No, he was not. He had an alternate meeting and could not attend.
Okay. So essentially the result of this proposal changes and it costs an additional $4,000.
Correct.
What is the detail? I mean, I guess it would be a question for everybody's kind of here. Because essentially they're changing from the large shrubs to small shrubs and they're going to do what instead of? Maintain the wetland that's currently there, but
They're going to be cleaning it. There's a lot of trash and sandbags and things like that. They want to be able to clean it out. And Eagle will say with these additional plantings, they can clean it out. They just can't remove it or fill it.
gotcha. And that would result in an additional cost,
Correct, by putting additional plantings that were not originally proposed in that area.
right? Okay. Yeah, disappointing the timelines and they get pushed back, because that was what we're looking for, because again, it's the hot topic as far as seeing some type of work being done in there, but obviously we need to get this done, so full support.
Is there anything the city crews would you like to dress it up a little bit this summer?
We should take a look at it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm glad to talk to Tim and, the easiest, the quickest thing to do would be probably a reseed or something like that and put some like different types of grass that would just sprout quickly and without necessarily investing a lot of money into it. Because that would probably be dug out as there would be conjuring plants and stuff like that.
And, you know, you got this, memo last minute, the Parks and Rec recently changed its meeting date from the third Thursday to the first Thursday, with the hope of, getting material to the city commission earlier. But, I'm not sure that's working, so we had a 3.5 hour meeting Thursday night. And the agenda went out at the rough draft, and it went out on Thursday. So we might have to revisit that, so we get materials, you know, more time and ways to get a rush to make a decision, but that's the reason for the wait, is getting these demos to you, so.
Available for your Parks and Rec meetings?
Yes,
But did he explain the difference in how?
well, he probably did, but I'm not really good at that, that's not a skill that I have. Pete, is there anything you could, Pete is with church as the chair of the meeting, Pete Bridger?
We've seen a lot of plans over and over, and they get kind of looking at which ones you're supporting. And this one basically was the wetlands projects. That was the part that came up that, you know, everybody thought it was just wet pond, you could fill it in and be done with it and continue on our plan. Come to find out, it's something that we cannot. So the thought was, where's the water coming from? What we have to do to clean it up, how we make it blend into the rest of the park. And that's what Beckett Grader and Tim came up with.
If you think it'd be of any benefit, I can read one paragraph from Mr. Knudsen's letter that he provided for the agenda packet, since he knew he wasn't going to be able to be here, that kind of addresses some of these questions that I think we know. That's okay. He states that during the meeting, Aaron, and this is the representative from Eagle, identified the permit application deficiencies and suggested that the permit could be rendered unnecessary if the wetlands were retained. We agreed that given this premise, excavations shown on the plans that remove the small room responsible for blocking drainage could be included in the work, but that no filling of the wetland could take place. Additionally, the area would be required to be planted using a wetland plant palette instead of lawn. We concurred with Aaron that this plan revision could result in an improvement to the south shoreline, and agreed to present the revision to the city for approval. Should the revision be approved, no permit would be required. So that's kind of what got us here today.
Yeah, just going through, I don't see the $4,000 increase, but again, he's not here to explain, because you're doing less, you're moving less material, you're doing less things. You're planting less shrubbery because you're maintaining what's currently there, essentially. So that's what I guess what was the big point was what difference.
I think there's actually more shrubbery that's going in and less lawn. That was the understanding I took away from the meeting.
Well, that's what was gonna be my question, then, if they were removing all the shrubbery, because in the proposed plan right here, you have. And I'm just trying to read through this, first one right here shows all these shrubberies, these circle sections, and then it's showing like proposed here, they're going to remove the shrubbery.
And we do here, so those plans look so much alike that we want to make sure, you know, I'm going to go to the big, can I borrow your sheet for a second? Okay, so this one here is the original plan. This is the lawn area with the proposed lawn. And he's going to this, and this has the additional land, wetlands planting. So this is the additional work that's gonna be in this green area here, going to be additional plantings, the shrubs and things. So that's the seeds.
Yeah.
I can entertain a motion. Motion that the city commission approve the change proposed by Beckett Grader to the open space landscape plan and to authorize them to resubmit the necessary documents to people.
Second.
Any further discussion? Jessica, roll call please.
Never check.
Aye.
Aye.
Meehammer.
Aye.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have 9E Marina Committee update. The recommendation from City Manager Michael Kane of the City Commission determines how they will want to proceed if the wishes to resolve the marina permitting question as soon as possible. That it approve the extension of services with Adam Marsh for an estimated fee not to exceed $5,500 as proposed, and authorize the city manager to execute necessary documents. Mike? Let's follow on this.
Okay, I've not seen those documents on our website screen, so we have to add those back in later on. At the City Commission's January 24th regular meeting, the Commission discussed next steps regarding permitting of the city marina and came to a consensus to authorize the city manager to contact Eagle and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to determine if work could proceed later this year without having to resubmit permits. Since that time, I've been in contact with the Army Corps through email and phone calls to determine what was necessary to obtain a permit modification. In order to provide a formal opinion, they need a written request along with a revised marina plan that would show the proposed new docks and slips with all their dimensions. Also required would be new tables with slip counts of the various sizes and the amounts of available broadside documents. They also wanted to see the plans marked up to show proposed future removal of existing wave attenuators, as well as removal of the mooring field, which had been included in earlier permitted plans. Once the revised plan with the requested information was developed and submitted, they would either ask for additional information or be in a position to grant or deny a permit modification. The same submittals would be used in requesting a permit modification from Eagle, since they generally use the same information, although some tweaking between the two may be required. You go back and actually look at the permits that either of them issued, they're almost the documentation that is provided by us and the consultant is almost identical. None of the documentation that we received from Avonmarsh to date provided all the information requested by the Army Corps of Engineers. I requested that Avonmarsh provide the city with an editable plan of concept 3 as previously approved by the commission, which they did provide. The intent was to use and edit that through our planning department's GIS system. However, once received, it was determined that modifying it through our GIS system for reuse was not a viable option to include all the data requested. The concept 3 base map would need all dimensional information added manually, and I do not have the knowledge from which to base and then insert the dimensional data requested. Where they actually start, whether it's the high water point, how many feet inland, things of that nature, was not information that expertise that I have available to myself. During the City Commission's budget work session, this matter was discussed and it was suggested that this matter be brought back before the City Commission for further consideration at tonight's meeting. I reached out to others in the marina field and was given the names of 4 Michigan firms that could potentially handle determining if our marina permits could be modified in alignment with concept 3 as the stated initial priority of getting Dock D rebuilt after this boating season for use during the 2024 boating season. The 4 firms that were suggested were Edgewater Resources with offices in St. Joseph, Avonmarsh with offices in Bennett Harbor, Gordy Fraser with offices in Traverse City, and Gosling Zupek Engineering Sciences also with offices in Traverse City. I contacted all 4 firms, providing them copies of our existing marina permits, concept 3, that we have, let them know that we have existing waterway grants for possible partial funding, project funding, and the commission's desire to begin work with the replacement of Dock D as soon as possible. I told all the firms that we were looking to determine if we could get a modification of our existing permits that will allow us to pursue the immediate replacement of Dock D with the overall goal of building over time towards concept 3. The immediate task, I request that they submit a proposal on determining with our committee agencies whether we could obtain modified permits from them, and if the answer was yes, what it would cost to obtain it. All the firms noted the short remaining lifespan of our existing permits, which run until May 23rd of 2024. Some firms estimated that obtaining all new permits could take 6 to 9 months, if not longer. So I do see an advantage in trying to maintain or see if we can get that modification to pursue Doc D. After reviewing the information and how far along we were with Avonmarsh, Gosling Zubeck felt that they would need to start the permitting process over and chose not to provide a quote. Gordy Fraser provided an agreement to do the work for a lump sum of $5,500. Avonmarsh broke the work into 2 components. And this is different than the proposal they gave us in the summer. Task 1 would be permit modification request, and the estimated fee for budget for that is $3,000. Task 2, assuming that they said yes to task 1 and said you could modify it, would be permit processing, and they estimated a fee budget for that of $2,500 for a total of $5,500. Edgewater Resources provided the cost to submit permit modifications and or a new permit process in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. Second phase of permit processing would be another $5,000 to $10,000. So the range that they gave us on their costs would be a total of between $10,000 and $20,000. I provided the city commission in the agenda packet copies of the relevant information from the responses we received from these firms. I believe that any of these firms could do the work which would answer the question that has been hanging out there for some time. Can we modify our existing permits that would allow us to go out for bids on Doc D with a vision of building towards concept 3? Once that question is answered, we would know if we are able to proceed with hiring a firm to then prepare bid materials for DDOT, which would be at an additional cost. That is not included in these estimates that are provided. If we do want to get the quickest answer to our permit question, so we can then turn to prepare bid documents for Doc D, I would recommend that we stay with Avonmarsh since they know what the commission wants to do with Doc D and concept 3. They have the quickest access to the required information to address the permitting agency request. Have done what the city has asked them to do, the city commission has asked them to do in the past, and they're no more expensive than any of the firms that have been contacted. If we want to step back and take more time, I would recommend that we set up a work session and bring in representatives from all 3 firms that gave us proposals and have them meet with the commission, review their approach, and have the commission determine which firm they felt had the best balance of services we need at this time and in relation to the future of the marina. That could be a potentially more complex, time-consuming, and expensive approach than what we're asking for here. So based on that, it is my recommendation that the city commission determines how it wants to proceed, and if it wishes to resolve the marina permitting question as soon as possible, that it approves the extension of services with Avonmarsh for an estimated fee not to exceed $5,500 as proposed, and authorize myself to execute the necessary documents.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments or questions from the public?
Hi, I'm Dean Pritchard, 536 East Lincoln Street. I'm going to start with a question. Were there papers in the packet that covered all of what you just said?
They were late, Sandy, the memo was compiled.
I just checked, it's online, and you have to scroll over.
But
It wasn't earlier today.
it came late, but it probably midnight or early afternoon before the memo was completed.
A lot to absorb, of what he just said, and but what I understood the ACE, Army Corps of Engineers wants, pretty straightforward, They want a formal written request, they want to revise design, they want slip counts. They want to know about the future removal of the attenuators in any existing decks. That is information we have. And I thought this was, again, I'm sorry, I thought this was where we were at some months ago. Because this is the core question. And I thought at that time the council discussed it and said, you know, it's something that city staff should be able to do. So I'm sad that this is where we're at because it's been known that any new permit was gonna take 6 to 9 months. So I guess, especially since the intent of the commission is for future expansion, these are things that we need to know how to do. Why would we continue to build a resource outside of ourselves on something that's we're capable of doing? I think, or we should have the capability. You're building a dependency. I do understand, or the GIS system is kind of a hybrid thing, and you might need to have support with that and getting some answers to that. But that's a technical service that you can find. I guess that's fundamentally where I'm at. The dollars aren't huge. I mean, that task 1, task 2 makes sense, you know, committee. But I'm concerned that we don't have the capability to draw from all the reports and things that have been given us over the time to assemble this ourselves. I just think that you guys are pretty smart people, should be able to help put that together. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, Tom, do you want to?
Sure. Like I said, we're at this point too, because we've been here. And very clear, stated by Mike, that we don't have the capability of doing this in-house. Mike is not an engineer, he's not an architect, we don't have the software. And anybody on staff cannot provide this information that is needed. We've discussed this at many meetings. We're back to spending $6,000 to get the information needed. Now it's $5,500. We wasted 9 months to save $500. But we're to a point where we need this information professionally compiled so that we can keep moving down the road to get our permits. We've Evan Marsh and Eagle and everybody, the permitting process has told us it's not a black and white process. They told us that this is a long-term process, that they need to analyze all this information so that if they can determine whether the permits we have now are still going to be viable with the changes that we make. With all that being said, here we go again. I'm in full support of moving forward with Evan Marsh, with Mike's recommendation for $5,500 to provide the information that we need so that we can continue what we've all needed to know, do the permits that we have. With the changes in the floor plan that we have, will the permits be usable? We're right back to the beginning. And yes, this is money well spent to get professional advice, professional expertise that Mike stated clearly. You cannot do it in-house. And yet, here we are. So I'm in full support. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what is the change in the $6,000 to the $5,500, Mike? What's the change in the services that they're providing and why is it $500 less?
In his, I think it was like December 8th submittal that he gave us. There was a lot more dealing with things that were not related to the permitting, and it wasn't a complete. It was basically an initial proposal to talk to the Army Corps and Eagle and say, can we get a permit modification?
Right.
But the second half of actually, if they said yes, doing the paperwork to do that was not included in that proposal. There were additional items that were included there, such as financial studies and cost estimate, not cost estimating, revenue estimating. There were some other items that we were discussing with getting information available to Baker Tilly. Those I stripped away from this, and I tried to have it focused on getting an answer, having to provide the base materials to Eagle and to the Army Corps. So we can get an answer from them, we've been asking, like it's been mentioned for some time. Can we get the permit modification? And if they say yes, then pick up on the second step, and then you would follow through on that to get it to completion where we'd actually have those permits in hand. That part was not included in the December 8th proposal. It was a half thing with regards to permits.
Right. So, and that's why I disagree completely with a lot of what you just said, Tom. 9 months, December 8th, that's not 9 months. It was very clear with the proposal that was drafted with Arvin Mosh back in December. There were several different things that it did not identify or take care of as far as the answers, and it was wasted, potentiality of wasted, and a wasted expense on something that we potentially wouldn't even know if these permitting agencies would allow us to do this modification. And so the consensus of the commission, not 9 months ago, but back in December, was for the city administration to engage correspondence with these permitting agencies to see if the modification of concept would be acceptable or not. City administration, so then the way I see it, I guess I kind of put it in my perspective, is the city administration then did the consensus of what the commission was, engaged the permitting agencies, got feedback from the permitting agencies of what they needed. City administration was there then given X, Y, and Z, what they need to do. And now is saying they don't have the means to provide X, Y, and Z. Made it a little bit competitive. There's a competitor here being able to do what we need to give the permitting agencies for $5,500. Magically, not 9 months later, but again, from December 8th to now, Arvin Mosh is able to come in favor of us with this long-standing relationship that they've had working on this for the last 16 years with the city, reducing that cost to us $500. So yeah, I'm in full support at this point in time because it's very transparent, very laid out. And I think that's a little bit more accurate scenario of what's actually taken place from December 8th to now, so.
Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Yeah, echo what Tim says, I agree. We've gone, I guess, 5 months now, and we're losing time, and the earliest that the dock B can be replaced is this coming fall.
Spring.
Is that in spring now?
Is that what you said, might be right in the spring of next year for Cody, is that?
What they would look to, in my discussions with him, is basically be this, they'd be like an overwinter construction project. Again, this still would have to go up for bids. I mean, there's a lot of ifs to go through.
Right.
Yes, but the goal that most recently when I talked about Cody, and this was just a couple of weeks ago, it's still viable that this could be in the water and floating and in service for next boating season.
Okay, so. I'm good, yeah, it's obvious that, we gotta get going on this, we don't wanna have a whole other year without power with an old dock. This needs to happen.
Yeah, I support your recommendation completely, so I entertain a motion. If we're interested in going this route.
I'll make a motion that the city commission approves the extension of services with Arvin Mosh for an estimated fee not to exceed $5,500 as proposed, and authorize the city manager to execute the necessary documents.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No.
Jennifer, roll call, please.
Conklin,
Aye.
Meehammer,
Aye.
Lassiter, Nemchak, motion carried.
And Jessica was correct, the materials are on the website.
Yeah, they just leave it right. So we move on to new business, 10A, public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget.
Mike, you're gonna give me more?
Yeah, if you'd like me to. For almost a month and through 4 public meetings, the city commission has received and reviewed and now considering finally adoption of our budget for fiscal year that starts on May 1st. In this budget document that's again available here online and at the library for review, there's about $6 million in general fund expenditures that are proposed. 2 of that $6 million are transfers to other departments like streets and things of that nature. The other $10.5 million are expenditures and other funds. Overall, the budget as proposed is looking to expend a little over $14.5 million. There are really good summaries of the breakdown of how both the revenues and the expenditures on that on page 8 and 10. And then there's a lot more detail with regards to overall at the end of the year, the way the budget is proposed, we're looking at it would basically come close to breaking even. We'd actually add, if everything comes in as proposed, add about $20,000 to the fund balance. Basically, it maintains all the existing services that we provide in the year, provide over the years. Keeps our millage rates the same for this fiscal year. Both the general operating millage at 15.51 and the debt millage at 1.7 mil for this year. We are getting close to some big milestones of financial success for us. Officially on April 1st, even though the withdrawal was a little bit earlier than that, we paid off another one of the city's debts. This one was for our water system. And in a couple more years, we'll pay off another debt for our sewer system. That frees up money that had been going to debt payment that can then be used to make improvements and or expansions to those systems and hopefully allow us to keep rates lower. This project, or this budget as proposed, has not allocated the $393,450 of ARPA funds. The commission has requested that we explore the possibility of seeing if we can use what's allowed under the law to basically offset losses that occurred during the pandemic with regards to that, and then use that money throughout the budget elsewhere. Again, it maintains our existing staff and service levels. It does provide in here funding to basically rebuild Dock D if the commission chooses to do so for the marina, and has funds for that while not sacrificing anything else with regards to our services to the community. So I want to thank everybody for their efforts on it. Jessica and her team have done a really great job of keeping us updated, keeping track of all the questions the commission had during our budget review work sessions. And we had 2 of those, one an all-day session and one a half-day session, maybe in March, and giving us timely updates. So it's greatly appreciated. I'd be glad to answer any questions that anybody has on this as well.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So at this point, we'll have a public hearing on the budget. So there are four items in the budget that we'll review. The public hearing will be an overall public hearing on the proposed budget as it is. So if you're interested, I will ask for the podium, state your name, address, and we'll open the public hearing at 8:43.
I am Sandy Britton, 526 East Lane. I'm sorry I wasn't able to sit with you this year. It was very fascinating last year when I sat through all the budget. And then I'm a numbers gal. But I think more than anything, I need questions of understanding. Under the marina fund, you refer to miscellaneous income, $1,011,10. What does that mean?
It's a transfer to the general.
Okay, so instead, because you did use that term in the other areas, you said transfer to the general fund, so I wasn't sure where you meant, you didn't actually control your numbers. Airport fund, I see that it's getting 23,000, I think, from general fund or fund balance.
From its home fund balance. As an internal, that's
Okay,
As
so,
a separate fund, and it hasn't received any general fund revenues or contributions for probably about 18 years.
okay. And so similarly to the marina fund, then miscellaneous income is the 75,975. Miscellaneous income, so you have in the airport fund, you got 90,000, you got gasoline sales, miscellaneous income of 76, and an allocation from a fund balance of 23.
Sorry, the line item 667.
I'm just looking at a summary. Again,
Okay,
I'm just trying to.
I'm letting them know, I think you're talking about 667,400. The miscellaneous income?
Yeah, well.
Are we in the marina fund or are we in the airport?
I'm here.
Okay, let me get it right. And what number are you looking at? Is the revenue or expenditure?
I'm looking at that's your summary, unfortunately, I'm not looking at budget book, so
Okay.
because under the airport fund, net gasoline sales 90,000.
Correct.
Miscellaneous income 75,975. What is that? Where did that come? Miscellaneous income. That revenue is coming from some other source?
No,
Is that now?
there is no money coming into the airport fund from any other source. It is all generated by the airport.
Okay, so it is miscellaneous income of some sort of fund. It's not from.
Everything.
Is it from pilots landing, they need to take off these? Is it-
No, it is mainly, the two main sources of the revenue for the airport are revenues from fuel sales, we put that up a little bit, and also from the lease of the hangars.
Okay, so there is no transfer into it, it's self-sufficient and at 188,000.
And for this year, correct,
Okay,
yes, and for many years.
no, that's just a point of clarity, because like you're talking about expansion and just it's wonderful that it's self-funding. And it's basically, I was trying to understand, because your terminology does change a little bit on the summary.
Yeah, we're working.
My and another question of understanding is what under city facilities construction fund, what constitutes city facility?
That is the fund that was used when this building was built and furnished. That's the one that we have that we basically have the savings from when this building was. And
So it's residual.
correct, it's about the $200 and some thousand that's been sitting there.
Okay,
We want to make sure that, we've had issues with it. Heating and cooling system, and we've noticed it here from time to time. If there's anything major that we need to expand on for future improvements.
you're gonna hang on to that?
In this budget is proposed that $100,000 of that be used for, approximately $100,000 be used for, future, cooking in the, heritage center. Yes.
And the motor vehicle fund was another one, was that kind of a head scratch, you take it in and then you give it away.
Correct. That receives funds from all departments that we purchase via, basically the motor fund, motor pool is a central place for purchasing vehicles for many of our departments. And to basically be able to afford that, the departments make contributions back into the fund. It's basically a self-perpetuating fund.
Okay, so you're.
But it's,
That's okay, you can help me with that at another time, because I think as I recall, you were charging fees to other areas.
that's correct. That's how it's
Gotcha.
generated.
Alright. And last but not least. On the very last page, section 8. Contractual change orders, the city manager with the city's clerk signing approval may approve change orders on contracts approved originally by the city commission of up to $10,000 per change order. And it's gotta be within the scope. I'm kind of surprised that's not set as a max percentage in any given contract we let out. It's something you might think about for continuous improvement. That's more unusual in business dealings. You wanna cap it, because that can be endless. And not that he's illegit, but then you have 10 upon 10 upon 10, and you guys didn't get the ability. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and 8:20 again.
No. No one with the hand raised, no, correct.
Okay, we can move on to our new resolution, the general operator. So we'll take each one of these individually and motion to approve or approve. And then we'll do individual vote for each. So we have a new resolution, general operator. Consideration to adopt a resolution to establish a general operating millage rate of 15.51 for the city of Boyne City fiscal year 2023-2024. There a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Second. Is there discussion? Roll call, Jessica, please.
Needhammer.
Aye.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Conklin.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We have item C, the millage rate resolution, the city facilities debt service. Consideration to adopt a resolution to establish a city facility debt service millage rate of 1.70 for the city of Boyne City fiscal year 2023-2024. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of adopting the city hall facilities debt service millage rate.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Jessica, roll call, please.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Conklin.
Aye.
Needhammer.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We have a General Appropriations Act resolution. Consideration to adopt the General Appropriations Act of fiscal year 2023-2024 resolution. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Jessica, roll call, please.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Conklin.
Aye.
Needhammer.
Aye.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Then we have the fee schedule resolution. Consideration to adopt fee schedule for fiscal 2023-2024 resolution. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Roll call, Jessica.
Conklin.
Aye.
Needhammer.
Aye.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. You've approved our budget then. Thank you very much to the city staff and the participation of the city commission and your commitment to working hard and feel good about it. So, moving on. We have item F, the state pension funding request. Consider the recommendation from city manager Michael Kane to review the material presented and, if acceptable, approve the resolution and authorize the mayor, city manager, and city clerk treasurer to execute the proposed letter and any other necessary supporting materials to encourage the state of Michigan to provide financial support to those units of government that made the efforts to ensure that their pension programs are financially viable at a 60% funded level or above.
As the city commission may be aware, in March of last year, the state of Michigan approved legislation that provided $750 million in financial support for units of government with less than 60% funded employee pension obligations. Originally, when this legislation was being considered, units of governments with pensions funded at 60% or more were proposed to receive $250 million in financial support. According to our most recent pension actuarial report that was issued as of December 31st, 2021, this city's pension program is funded at 91%. Based on the current legislation, Boyne City and other units of governments also at or above 60% funding level would receive no support from the state regarding pensions. These communities and their employees, ours included, are the ones that made the difficult decisions to change their pension programs years ago to something that they and their citizens could afford and plan for going forward. Units of governments across the state like ours that are at or above the 60% pension funding level are working together to have the state reconsider this matter and hopefully provide support to them, us as well. Attached for the city commission's review and consideration is a draft letter and resolution that would be sent to our representatives in Lansing, seeking their support in revisiting this issue. So this would be sent to Senator Moose, Representative Christie, the governor's office, things of that nature, if this commission was so inclined. Basically, this has really come up in a lot of my local government meetings with other professionals in there, in the profession, that it's a matter of, you know, the ones that really worked hard to make sure that they're financially viable and solid, and again, making hard decisions, are basically getting penalized twice. Because they made those sacrifices initially. In some respects, they're competing against communities that haven't made those sacrifices, and they're getting back funded by the state to compete against us. This is looking to basically reward what hopefully all communities should be doing, which is looking at their financial house and putting it in order. So it's my recommendation that the city commission review these materials, and if you find them acceptable, authorize us to send the document recommended. And I'd be glad to try and answer any questions you have. I should mention too that we think this is really timely at this time. This is why it's coming forward to you right now. The legislature in Lansing has gone back to work after being off for a while for kind of an Easter recess and spring break type of thing. They're back in Lansing working on the budget as we speak, trying to put that together before the start. I think they have a target date of June or July to try and get it done in advance of the state's October fiscal year start. So, but it's been reported to us that that's what they're working on right now, so it'd be timely to get this before then.
Thank you. Any questions or comment from the public? Tom, do you want to start?
No, I appreciate this, Mike, saying top of the politically, the punished, it can be financially proven, thoughtful. So I appreciate what you need to do.
I would full support. It's great that we're at 91%. I think the figure that was said recently or told to the commission was that less than 5% of governmental bodies are in the condition for the state that we're in. So we're beyond doing very well, obviously. Unfortunately, the rug's pulled out from under us, which we all know. Working with the government, that seems to be the case more often than not in situations like this. So I'm in full support of it.
It's very good time, did it? You know,
Yeah, I'm completely agreement with that. You know, I think we should even do more. You know, I think we should meet individually with our state reps, our state senator. You know, I find this to be completely irresponsible. How many hundreds of thousands of dollars did we sacrifice to get to 91% that we haven't been able to invest in the community? And now they're going to do this. It just doesn't seem at all fair. It just is completely wrong. And I don't think the form letter is enough that we know I'll be able to speak for myself. And we've been doing it for 19 years. We've been adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to the budget each year to make up a pension deficit. And then they have communities in the county be at under 60% and raise the rewards to make that whole. Just completely irresponsible. So.
well said, Mr. Mayor.
That's what I have to say about it.
One question, just point to like, this is only addressed to Honorable Jack Bergman.
That was entered in here. And that was just a sample letter. It was the wrong representative. was entered in there. That was my mistake, not catching that sooner, that our Washington representative, who really doesn't have anything to do with it, was put out a sample letter, and that was a mistake.
Okay.
But if it makes the mayor feel any better, the recommendation is to authorize the mayor, city manager, and clerk treasurer to execute the proposed letter and any necessary supporting materials, so. Legislators, I mean, they really like to hear from the elected officials as well too, and I think the mayor's point with regards to if anybody else feels that same way, to contact them or invite them to one of our city commission meetings. It doesn't look like we're gonna have much of a contingent going to the Michigan Municipal League Conference, at least at this point. But that's another opportunity to meet with those people. I think we had some roundtables when we were there last year, where we met with our then representatives at that time. It's a whole new slate now that we're dealing with. And I think it's important to build relations and know what we support and where we don't. We're not always going to agree with them or they with us, but they need to know where we stand as a community.
Okay. Well, I would entertain a motion,
Make a motion that the city commission approve the resolution to authorize the mayor, city manager, and city clerk treasurer to execute the proposed letter and any other necessary supporting materials to encourage the state of Michigan to provide financial support to those units of government that make the efforts to ensure that their pension programs are financially viable at a 60% funded level or above.
is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? Roll call, Jessica.
Needhammer.
Aye.
Baxter.
Aye.
Nemchek.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Motion carried.
One.
I think it's important, and I talked about some of the good news in the budget with regards to rolling off some of the debt. And the commission's heard this from me for many years now with regards to the actuarial studies we've been getting from PERS and the increasing contributions we've been having to make over the number of years. Now, this might be pushed back with regards to the decline in the stock market and less return on investments. They put out the final day of reward a couple of years longer than we anticipated, or the last actuarial show. But we've got light at the end of the tunnel with regards to our pension obligations. That, again, as the mayor spoke, we've been investing heavily to cover our debts and to pay our obligations. But by making some of these changes and doing what we started close to 20 years ago, we're close to paying those off and getting to 100% on this, which will free up money for the long term that we can use on other resources or anything that the community wants, other priorities or potential, hold off tax increases or possible reduction, things of that nature. So I don't want it to sound like, our efforts have been in vain. It's just that the reward process at the state here has gone through, go backwards.
Thank you. So, as mentioned before, our closed session, both 1 and 2 have been postponed to a later date. So, we move on to
I just wanted to, one thing, yesterday, my mother-in-law, who's elderly, and lives with us, fell off our front porch, let the dog out. Came over that, hey, let's start my driveway. That's what it's right. She was very good. She's okay. But I read that and everybody, listening, I just wanted to pass on Dan Wandry. And I think it was Amanda Majors responded, and they were so good to her. And so kind and understanding and nice. She's suffering from dementia, so she gets confused quite easily. I was just so impressed with that. Of course, I know Dan really well. But I just wanted to pass on and also Dan Mercer came from the PD. And again, I just can't say enough about them, how much I appreciate their kind, compassionate, professional demeanor with them. Kudos to them.
He's doing okay.
Yeah, she's pretty tough.
Anything else?
So clarification on our marriage change date.
I'm still waiting to get if there was a Google or Doodle.
Yeah.
Did we get that application?
I've only got a couple responses so far with regards to that.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember, but I think there's only 2 commissioners that have responded so far. And if people need me to resend out the invitation, I'd be glad to do that. Okay.
I had one thing, you remember back, it was in one of our meetings in October, when we were awarding trees or at Robinson and how we planted trees in public right away and that sort of thing. And, you know, I kind of thought there's a better way of doing that. We kind of create a committee or advisory board that oversees that. So I've kind of reviewed a few of those from other communities around, ordinances and that sort of thing. And I've compiled some things and, I'm thinking if it's okay with you that I bring something forward in the next meeting or two to start a discussion on what we might be able to do as far as creating a tree advisory board or commission or something like that. I'll bring students and, you know, bring some clarity.
Is that what you're doing, the cutting down the dead trees and placing them?
Yeah, the public hearing board. Sure. You know, we just wait for people to sign up and then somebody signs up, they do the tree, you know, there's an annual plan, you know.
Yeah, because I wasn't aware of something in last fall, how that every worked with maple tree is small, really, and fall down and, you know, when you've been aware to make requests that it was removed.
Okay, with that, new announcements, next regular city commission meeting is scheduled for April 25th at noon. So, we will kind of motion for the hearing.
I'll make a motion for adjournment.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Yeah.